Nissan's iconic GDR nameplate is now half a century young, and to celebrate, they've released this, the predictably named GDR 50th anniversary. They call it the 2020 model, which would kind of make it the 51st anniversary edition, but let's not let academia get in the way of a good story. So, how far has GTR come? Sadly, we don't have the original PGC-10 version to sample today, but we do have this. 30 years of GDR lineage going back to the Great R32 of 1989. So, let's take them for a drive, starting with the original Godzilla. The R32 GDR, or R32 as it's commonly called, is the True Godzilla. It's a name that Australia bestowed, and it stuck. It was conceived in the late 80s as a package to dominate global Group A touring car racing, and its road-going homologation version was an absolute game changer. And its numbers still stack up pretty well today. The now legendary RB26D TT 2.6 litre 6 made 206 kilowatts and 353 newton meters officially, although a lot of people would think that's shy of reality. With this advanced all-wheel drive system and all-wheel steering, it was an absolute technical tour de force back in 1989. The R32 could hit 100 kilometers an hour in about 5.9 seconds. So it's a bit of a supercar beater, particularly when you start sticking it through corners. How does it feel 30 years on? It feels surprisingly light, tight and engaging. It's really mechanical, particularly through the steering. I love the old 5-speed gearbox as well. The gating's nice and tight, but there's just a real sense of engagement. It's a fair amount of grip and balance, probably not a lot of shove in the initial low end, but when it does come on boost in the mid-range, you can just see how this was such an exciting car when it first arrived back in the 80s. It does feel great, this thing, it's amazing. After the R32 was put to pasture back in 1994, Nissan released this, the R33. Essentially carried over the R32's running gear and platform, but it was in a larger, heavier body. And while it didn't quite have the race pedigree of the R32, it really went on to become a hero in its own right, well after its 4 years of production. Unlike the R32, it was never released in Australia, but it was produced in much smaller numbers, so maintaining its desirability. So, how does it go? For a car that was criticised as being the big heavy GDR, it's still so lithe and engaging, particularly compared to today's heavy cars. Much like the R32, you don't get that sort of initial low-down torque surge, and the engine's not quite as linear as a modern engine, but it really still feels quick by even modern measures. This version's probably had a little bit of work. It's definitely louder than the R32 that I just drove. For a car its age too, everything still feels nice and tight, mechanical. So it's a real testament to the engineering that Nissan put into this car. The good old straight six. Nissan, why did you have to get rid of it? At the tail end of the 90s, at what some consider the great Japanese turbo era, the R34 arrived. It was shorter than the R33, and Nissan built fewer examples in its brief 3-year life cycle. Nissan claimed that it was maintaining 206 kilowatts, though people in the know put the estimate closer to about 250. Nissan finally ditched the 5-speeder and fitted a 6-speed to the GDR lineage, and fitted a more sophisticated all-wheel drive system. Compared to its predecessors, the 34 is definitely torquier and ballsier, probably more what you would expect from a GDR experience. This car is fantastic, and while my heart probably says R32, everything else about the experience, particularly the driving experience, says that the R34 is the real deal GDR monster. Production of the R34 ended in 2002, And with it, the Skyline nameplate was put to pasture. So too was that lovely RB26 DETT engine. And it'd be a long 5 years until Nissan returned with a completely reimagined GTR in the R35. It's amazing to think that the R35, no Skyline, was released 12 years ago. So it's been in production now for as long as all 3 generations combined. When it arrived in 2007, it was a GTR that was completely reimagined. It was much heavier, but much techier, and it brought a whole new level of performance. Gone was the much loved but terribly aging RB26 DETT, replaced by a 3.8 litre V6 twin turbo, good for 357 kilowatts and 588 newton meters of torque. It was an absolute monster, and Nissan claimed it would take on any car, anytime, anywhere. It could bolt from 0 to 100 in around 3 seconds flat, effectively halving the R32's 5.9 second figure. And over its dozen-year life cycle, the R35 became quicker and more powerful. This 50th anniversary version in 2019 produces 421 kilowatts and 633 newton meters of torque. Now, like all the mainline R35 variants, it continues to promise world-beating performance for a relatively cut-priced outlay. And that's before you consider the ludicrous Nismo version that produces almost 450 kilowatts. While the R35's performance has managed to move with the times, the question is, can a package originally developed 15 years ago still stack up in 2019? To find out, check out our full review at caradvice.com.